Beneath the surface is a special place. Beneath the surface is where extraordinary happens. Designations, visiting cards, fancy cars. Now, whatever may lie on the surface, delve a little deeper, and that's where you will find the hunter-gatherer, the predator. That's where you will find lurking the real, way beneath the surface.
And three. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of A Done Deal, a podcast where we get unique, relatable perspectives on entrepreneurship and leadership as seen from the eyes of seasoned entrepreneurs and investors. It is a great pleasure to introduce my guest today, Pieter Hack. Pieter is an accomplished Dutch entrepreneur who deals primarily in sustainable technologies and is making that difference to climate change. He is a process engineer by training and has an MBA from INSEAD. His entire career has been focused on scaling up and implementing environmental and energy technology. Having been involved with work in the field of Electro Dialysis, he was one of the early pioneers to recognize and adapt the potential of this technology to produce blue energy, as they call it, by reversing the process. Pieter is a member of the board of DMEC, which is the Dutch Marine Energy Center. He's also a member of the board of the Wetsus Supervisory Board and the European Center of Excellence for Sustainable Water Technology. He's a man of many interests and has a passion for zipping across mountains on his motorcycle. Pieter, welcome to A Done Deal.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Pieter, what's the biggest surprise that you've had or have seen in the last few months with COVID, and why?
Well, when it's related to my business, then it was basically a bit a negative surprise. And that's to the how many people really will put the money where the mouth is when it goes to upscaling and implementing sustainable technologies. I think in the Netherlands and Europe, many places, the atmosphere and the government contributions on doing exploratory laboratory research and applied laboratory research and pilot plant work, there's a lot of subsidies and grants available for that. But when it comes into upscaling, demonstration scale, where millions are needed to implement the technology, to showcase the technology, then it seems as nobody's at home. And it has been like this already for well, basically as long as I'm in business. But I thought with the Green Deal and the urgency for climate change and the introduction of sustainable energy sources and so on, that now the tides would have been turned and it would be easier to get funding, especially from the EU and Dutch government. Yes. But it isn't. I'm not only talking about my own company, Redstack, sure, but also for two other companies that I'm involved, and we're both in the phase also in upscaling the technology. And all three companies applied for a grant, and all three were rejected.
Okay.
With a very high note, but just not good enough. So that was a negative surprise, at least.
Well, with the energy transition that is expected to happen over the next 30 years, you're right. The governments should take a keen participation in research, development, engineering, and I would say encouraging new forms of energy, and not just new forms of energy, but also better ways to improve, should I say, the LCOE of energy. So yes, you are right. The last few months have been difficult. Many of us have never experienced such a type of existential crisis before, especially where the human psyche has been tested and stress tested. COVID-19 has indeed made life difficult for a lot of entrepreneurs. And Based on your experience, I mean, you've been an entrepreneur for decades now. Based on your experience, having seen various stages of growing businesses, what is your advice to entrepreneurs and founders who are going through difficult times over the last few months?
I wish I could say that. I'd rather ask the question on other entrepreneurs. But anyhow, the leading thing is never give up, but also start more in time, because all processes will take longer.
Yes.
Basically, the ongoing businesses, okay, when you know your colleagues, when you know your staff and your and business partners, you can do a lot on Zoom and Teams meetings, and so that works fine. But when you have to start up something new, meet new people, meet new organizations,
yes,
that is much more difficult, because then you're okay, you can see a picture, video, and you hear a voice, but you don't feel the body language and read between the lines. That is for me very difficult. So that simply takes longer. And one of the things, or two things basically that help, is start in time. It will take more time.
Yes.
But also train your video skills. Especially, I think Americans are very good in pitching trainings. Bring the message across. I think, that's most of the Europeans, at least, don't have that learning curve yet. So they're learning fast. They should be learning fast, because that's at the moment the way of doing business. And I was myself involved in American pitching trainings for the last couple of months, and I'm certainly not saying that I'm good at it, but I'm absolutely saying that I learned a lot, improved a lot.
Okay.
To bring a message across.
Well, yes.
And just accept it for being normal like this, and don't make life more complicated than it already is. Don't complain, don't be sad. No, this is how we do it.
Yes. As entrepreneurs, as founders, we're often stuck in, I would say, the challenge of prioritization. There are hundreds of things to be done, and there's always very little time. And I think getting that initial team right is also, I think, a big, which could make or break the business, right? Any advice for co-founders about how they should tackle this?
Yeah, difficult. If I look a bit at myself, maybe in the past I was jumping or acting a lot more on my gut feeling and my idea. I had it in my mind, but even then I still could feel that my direct business partners, co-workers were not catching up with me. I was walking too far ahead of the parade, although I thought I made it clear to them, but apparently not good enough. I think that is now even more important, because you don't have that personal contact at all. So your business plan, your information memorandum, or whatever you want to call it, should be ready more early, and it should be more explicit and detailed, without being a too long story, on what you want to do and where you're heading for. And so that's write it down and communicate about in that way. That's even more important than it was ever.
Yes, I suppose that's the best way to stay aligned with translating your vision.
Yeah, and not just think from, they probably have got it because I got it. No, that doesn't work.
And of course, managing all the risks as well, right? That's quite important, especially with not just the financial side of things, but also the market now, because that seems to be changing. You've been an entrepreneur for several decades now, and you've had your fair share of ups and downs, and you've seen the booms and the busts. If you'd go back, let's say 10, 20, 30 years and do things differently, what would that be? And what do you think would have made that difference?
Well, basically that could be the same as we are, as I just was saying, that should be done now. communicate about what your plan is and make it explicit to your direct business partners. And I think I did not do that well enough in the past.
Okay.
But also maybe for myself, did not elaborate the business plan into sufficient detail or sufficient long term. Maybe thinking too much, well, it will be fine, but the financial consequences, the application, who is your client, and what's worth to him. It was more a gut feeling than on
analysis,
data,
market research. Okay.
And also the timing. One of the project technologies I was working on in the past was the digestion of municipal solid waste. Once the source separating waste was being implemented, there was this easy biodegradable stuff, the vegetable waste, kitchen waste stuff. And the company I was working for at that time, we were introducing or developing a digestion system. So not composting to make compost, but digesting to make biogas and compost out of it. And we did have a launching customer, and the government, the policies were heading into that direction. But we were too early. The market was new, was not even there. And we are spending a lot of money on in the pilot plant. Okay, we got some good subsidies and business partners, but the timing was not right. And I think only years later, when we already stopped, and then the market developed in a bit different way than we were anticipating, but at least there was a market.
Right.
So also the legislation had to be adjusted, adapted to that to make this technology possible. And it all took much longer than ever thought, at least than I ever thought.
Right.
So there were a couple of millions were down the drain. So timing was very important.
Yes, timing, legislation.
And that's not always fast. That can be also a bit later when the legislation is there or the market is there, and not way ahead of the parade.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, have you always been in the Netherlands, Pieter?
I lived in the Netherlands always, and from north to south to west, but not ever abroad, although I did travel a lot. I did set up my own company in China. And in the course of some 15 years, I think I've been there. I went there 6 times a year for 1.5 weeks. So that should be about 70, 80 trips to China. And add on to that, I work for an American company. I go there every month for 3 years. So that's some 40 trips in US. And then Europe is almost domestic, I would say.
Well, yes. If you've been to both the US and China, between 40 to 70 times a year, then yes. And where did you grow up within the Netherlands? What was your childhood like?
Well, I grew up in the very southeast between Belgium and the German border. 5 kilometers to the left, 5 kilometers to the right about the other countries. And I grew up in a very poor neighborhood where the mining people, because in the south of Netherlands we have coal mines, where the mining people lived. And the first the first migrant workers came in. And these days they were from Yugoslavia and Hungary. And my father was a general practitioner, medical doctor over there. And my mom was by education a lawyer. Graduated also in theology and philosophy, but she never worked as a lawyer. She basically run not only the business of my father, the medical stuff, but basically she run the whole neighborhood because the people there were good, willing people, but lack of organizational skills and these kind of things. So my mom was taking care of a lot of them. So basically, from that point of view, I was a bit in the spotlight for all my youth. Because I was the oldest son of the local doctor. And though I think my family was trying to be modest and normal, but for whatever reason, I was a bit in the spotlight. And I think my parents mainly educated me, trained me in a way, take care of your own business and try not to depend on others. Organize it well, do it well, and complaining, no, that's the wrong thing. arrange it yourself.
So you have been fairly independent, fairly entrepreneurial from your childhood, then from your teens, I suppose.
Although I didn't know it at that moment,
Of
but
course.
only looking back in hindsight, I said that's the main thing. Try to cover everything and that is relevant to you, and make sure you end up in somewhere in a spot in society where you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And my father never pushed me to be his successor in his as a general practitioner medical. He gave a freedom to go wherever, also for my brothers, to do whatever we feel we should do. As long as we were motivated and happy in it, then my parents would agree.
Incredible. Did you have any mentors growing up? Did they have any influence over your thinking, your career, your choices, should I say?
Not at high school, and no, maybe one at university. There was a professor, the one who developed the anaerobic wastewater treatment technology, the biogas technology out of industrial wastewater flows. That was the company I started to work for after my graduation.
Okay.
This guy, he never did it for the money. He wanted to contribute something good to the world, a sustainable wastewater treatment system.
Okay.
And especially my first boss, Jos Paak, was the owner of the company Paak, that I started to work for. I think from a business point of view of upscaling, entrepreneurship, implementing, rollout, together with the chief design engineer, Sjoerd Vellinga, that inspired me a lot, and I certainly learned a lot from them.
Okay, and going back, sorry, I didn't mean
Jos Paak and his family company, when I joined that company in 1984, the company was there evaluating from cattle feed silos and biogas plants for manure digestion into industrial wastewater treatment, and starting local business only. And at the moment, it's having a couple of own companies all over the world, and China already a long time, also Brazil and the US. With Hicks ups and downs, but only last week it was announced that this company, the family-owned business, was sold to a German investor company for further growth and rollout.
Okay. And I was going to say, going back to these events, do you think continued mentoring or changing mentors, what would you have looked for in a mentor back in the day, and how has it sort of changed over should I say the next 20-30 years? Was it career advice you sought? Was it more of skills?
Now, when I left university, I had a pure technical education, process engineering, chemistry, physics, but nothing on economics, nothing on administration kind of things, nothing on IT, only the traditional process engineering stuff. So when I started to work, I knew nothing. I remember that what I was at this first company, after about a year, we got a phone call from Austria, from a company who was asking, well, you're building great plants, can we get a license to do that in our country? And Jos Paak and he would look at you, what the heck is a license? What's this guy talking about? So we were finding out on the job as we were elaborating. And of course, the more then I started to learn myself, the more other things bump into that you never heard about. But yeah, I'm 61 at the moment, 62 next month. I also have decided not to get involved in everything and not to try to catch up everything, and also some new technologies and adjacent or parallel businesses or even far.
Okay.
Because I think I cannot influence it. I look at the politics as long as it concerns the Green Deal, but that's it. And many other technologies, no.
Well,
I'm busy enough with my own thing.
Well,
and then not trying to understand everything, that gives also some peace of mind.
Yes.
If you accept, okay, I'm not going to do it.
Yes.
Once you accept that makes life a bit easier.
It is a great strength, self-awareness and essentially, understanding what your strengths and weaknesses are, what you like to do, what you don't like to do. Yeah. And you can always outsource what you don't like, for example, and focus on your strengths or your interests. Pieter, you have...
A great turning point was when it's got 50. In the Netherlands, 50 is a magic age.
Okay.
And I keep on telling to my classmates from university, although they are all 61 as well, but they still don't understand. So I keep repeating it. When you have your own opinion and you're not even 50 years old, then it's called stubborn kind of thing. But when you have exactly the same opinion once you pass 50, then it's called, what is that in English? Wisdom of life. It's your same stupid opinion, but that is accepted to have that opinion. And listen to other people, but not care too much on how they think about you. Listen, absorb, but not necessarily have sleepless nights on.
Yes. You've spent your entire life on climate change, working on sustainable energy. How has the perception changed in the last few decades? How do you look at climate change? That's the thing I was keen to understand. Should everyone worry about it in more or less the same fashion, or are there more people who are powerful or who have more influence on controlling it? What are your thoughts?
Well, the high-level politicians and so presidents have more influence than I do. But, yes. I do not focus on climate change alone, only. Also take a look at the level of water pollution, or the availability of good drinking water, or even the availability of fossil fuels on the long term, or the availability of certain nutrients like phosphorus, or for the batteries, the lithium. There seem to be, wherever you ask, there seem to be limited amounts available, and doesn't matter that much if that's 10, 20 or 100 years to go that we have sufficient stuff to continue using. But there will be an end at a certain moment in time. And then I have a strong belief in the various types of technologies and techniques. And I do not want to give in on my luxury of life. I'm a comfort at home and traveling, whatever. So I bet on all kinds of technologies and systems that we can proceed with our, let's say, happy life, and also make life for others better without giving in on our luxury. So I want to drive whatever, many hundreds horsepower car, now the motorbike, spilling fuel, fair enough, but what type of fuel? In the future, it should be sustainable fuel. But as long as I every now and then can step on the gas and make a lot of noise and burn some rubber, then I'm happy. And I'm pretty convinced that this is also possible in a new, more sustainable energy technology type of world, without upsetting anybody.
Yes. Well, it's about that difference, and you have been working on futuristic, disruptive technologies from the very beginning. And you've taken them all the way from they were an idea to the commercialization stage and beyond. You're currently working on something called blue energy, right? So could you please tell us a little more about blue energy and where it fits in the overall energy landscape, and what you have done so far?
Well, that's a nice question. The concept is that we use two different flows of water, one with a high salt content and one with a low salt content. And then nature says that the salt concentration equalizes, homogenizes once mixing, and a bit of energy is released at that moment in time when everything is equalizing. And we use so-called ion selective membranes to contact the salt water and the fresh water. And then it homogenizes, ends up being brackish water, what happens anyhow when the river flows into the sea, but we're harvesting this technology as a power.
Yes.
At the moment, we have a pilot plant operating in the north of the Netherlands, realizing or generating power for about a couple of households. Okay. And the next step is that we'll go upscaling into 0.5 megawatt. Let's say that's sufficient for a small village. And at the end of the day, when most of the rivers, at least part of the water flows in these rivers is used, it can go up to 10 or 12% of the world power demand that can be harvested in this way. And the great thing that the position in the so-called energy mix in this is, yes, it is only 10 or 12% of the total power demand, but it is full continuous as long as the river flows. And when you design the system on a low water, dry summer, dry weather period, and still leave sufficient water that the ships and fishes can pass, it still is 10 to 12% of the world power demand, but it's full continuous. So other sustainable technologies like sun and wind, they are great, but no sun, no wind, no power. Yes. So you need storage systems to bridge the dark and quiet periods, which is more than half of the time. Yes. And these storage systems, they're costly, especially when you want to go the sustainable green power converted to hydrogen, store the hydrogen, and then convert it back to power when you need it. Yes. This has an efficiency of no more than 1/3, and it will not get better. 2/3 of the energy is lost in the conversion. Yes. And once you have a full continuous power, like several types of hydropower or power from water, energy from water, amongst blue energy is a very important one in that, you reduce the need for conversion and storage systems, and thus also reduce cost. Yes, yes. But okay, at the moment, the coal-fired systems and oil-fired systems are bridging that gap. But once we are a couple of years ahead, then the landscape will look different. Yes, yes, absolutely. With new investments going in marine energy and building that ecosystem, with new investments going in battery technology and energy storage systems, and also building mini grids, I suppose that entire landscape will change in the next 5 years. And GridStack has that first mover advantage. Could you please tell us a little more about GridStack and how it is assisting in achieving local as well as global climate goals, as in about the business and what the future plans are on scaling up the business? Now, I said we picked up the concept, the idea of the technology at the Wetsus Institute for Water Technology in north of Netherlands. That was the first place where 3 PhDs were put on this topic in 2004 it was, without ever a proof of concept being done. But the management of Wetsus believed this is going to work. Basically, it is a seawater desalination system, an Electro Dialysis system, ED, reversed. So it's the same thing like an electromotor and a dynamo. When you have such a thing and you turn on it, it generates power. And when you put power on it, it starts to turn, to rotate. So when you have a desalination system, you put in energy and salt water. When you do it the other way around, take the double salt water and the fresh water, it generates energy. And the very first test was done in 2004 in the laboratories of Wetsus. And then the performance was lousy compared to the modeling and compared to what should be possible based on chemical and physical calculations of diffusion, this kind of, and kinetic energy content, these kind of things. The performance was lousy, and it took until 2011 that the researchers in the laboratory thought, yes, we make it in the laboratory. We match the power generation according to what was calculated, postulated in 2004. And then it was time to really start the company. So we were, in the beginning, we were just following what the researchers were doing and acquire a patent for Wetsus. But in 2012, we start to raise the funds and the permits to build a pilot plant. And 2014, it was ready. And now the king from Netherlands, Willem-Alexander, His Royal Highness, came to do the ribbon cutting ceremony. And of course, we're very honored and proud on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But then it turned out that the pure water in the laboratory and the laboratory conditions, and the turbid water with all kinds of algae and sand and zeolites and all stuff, and the water in IJssel lake water, was quite different than the laboratory. So for the first 3 years that our pilot plant was running, it was a lousy performance. We were back to square one, had to solve better other problems than first were in the laboratory. And only now, since about 2 years, this pilot plant is also matching these original calculations from 2004 that yes, per liter of water, we can harvest so much energy. So then now we really were ready for upscaling.
Impressive. Impressive. I mean, you've gone through so many ups and downs and so many challenges. It must be, I would say, a feeling of. So, what is the proudest moment of this entire initiative?
Now, from this business point of view, I think that the king came over to do the ribbon cutting ceremony. He stayed 1.5 hours with us, which is a very long visit for Royal Highness. Most of the times they're only 10 or 20 minutes, but and I was in a position to deliver my speech for about 10 minutes face to face to the king.
Right.
And 350 other guests. This was possible in the non-corona days to have guests,
I remember.
And in 2016, this technology in the company was awarded the title of Dutch national icon by the full board of ministers in the Netherlands.
Incredible.
And that was a happy and proud feeling. Being on TV and being in the spotlight and get the prize from the Minister of Economic Affairs and the Prime Minister visiting us. So a lot of, you could also call it a lot of free publicity. But
well, I suppose it all helps. It all helps bring the technology to the fore, make it known to the public. And I understand there are textbooks which talk about Red Stack and the technology now. So that is seriously impressive. Do you have any collaborations or joint ventures or partnerships with other people, other businesses in the ecosystem? Maybe not in a similar space, but other areas.
Yeah, and it is also very important to have them because one step more looking back or looking from a helicopter point of view, when you look at technology development and water and energy businesses, for example, in France or Germany or England, there is most of the time that very big corporates in the water or energy business are doing innovations on generating these kind of things. But in the Netherlands, the landscape is completely different. It is basically all SMEs trying to do that.
Okay.
And once you head them up then to the upscaling and you need significant more capital, well, the SMEs don't have it. And then and France and England, the water authority or the national power company, well, they don't mind spending another 30 or 50 or whatever million on it. They just increase the price of the tap water a dime or 1/10 of a cent if it fails. But for SME, it's impossible. So you have to talk. I would call it not my competitors. I call it my brothers in arms to work upscaling other energy technologies. Doesn't matter if it's in hydrogen business or other sources of energy from water, like in the DMEC organization, Dutch Marine Energy Center. So there's always something you can learn in these brother in arms kind of things.
Yes, indeed.
Especially lobby to the government, also on top of that, and making one face and not too many detailed looks.
Partnerships are important. Especially, do you have any partnerships with companies in the entire vertical supply chain as well?
We are working on that. not signed and sealed and not operational, but although within Redstick has two sister companies, to call it that way, basically working in the same area.
Yeah.
One name I cannot disclose yet, because depending on when this is broadcasted, it will be only announced after 1st of January.
Okay.
But that makes the position of a technology developer, a key component developer, supplier, it makes it stronger.
Yes.
And once our demonstration project for the upscaling of the 0.5 megawatt is getting founded, or close to being founded, then also our memorandum of understanding, which we have with the big Arcadis group, a Dutch-American consulting engineer group in water systems, flood protection systems, that will become operational.
Okay.
And that will be a big boost, because these Arcadis guys have a 3.5 billion revenue, and they have and they're strong in flood protection systems. So where the river flows into the sea, there is where we, as a small company, Redstick, can benefit a lot from, I think. Helping us, not just the visibility, but also the connections and the way to go, and how to handle a project development, how to handle a application for environmental permit.
Yes.
These guys know it, they've done before. So it's a great help to us.
Yes, having these partnerships do make that difference, and it sort of gives you, I would say, a lot more time to focus on your main business, and going back to what we were discussing,
and not having to learn it all yourself, because we are a small company, and I've never built a project of $1 billion, and simply I'm never going to do it. But there are other organizations who are perfectly fit to do so. And it's also a bit of trial and error to find the right one, that you are in talking the same language, although the size difference is enormous, at least understands each other and respect each other. And then find a common ground to proceed. And there's a lot of trial and error, and also many negative feedback. No, it doesn't fit. It isn't suitable. No, not at this time. Okay, until you hit the right one.
Yes. How do you manage to think in years, plan in months, and deliver, in weeks? Any secrets?
Don't let yourself get crazy, drive crazy. And certain things then have to be stable in your life, I think. And then that is one of the things that was not on your question list you sent there before. It is how is your private life looking? And I think I'm very happy and grateful to my wife. I told that to the king when he was listening to my speech, that she take care of the household and the family, and she tells me what to do and what not to do in the household situation and raising kids and put out the garbage can and these kind of things. But I had the peace of mind and the comfort that at home everything was going smooth. And then if it was a difficult time in business or a lot of intercontinental traveling, I could do whatever I want. So that was easier to focus on and not having the burden of let's say troubles at home.
So there is a saying, behind every successful man there's a capable and confident woman. So yes,
absolutely. And I talked with a couple of business partners a long time ago. And basically we all agreed that a wife who has an education as a nurse, medical nurse, that's the best one. And we have a couple of 5 entrepreneurs at these times, and we all were married to either a nurse or I don't know the English word for that, a type of nurse who takes care of mother and baby just after the baby is born.
The midwife?
No, not doing the delivery, but as soon as the baby is born, she comes in, arrange the household, and take care of the baby, take care of the mom for about 2 weeks until things are under control again in the family.
The maternity
after the delivery. So I don't know the English word for that, but the statistics prove that these are the most giving the best background for an entrepreneur to do his thing.
Okay, wow. I suppose it has something to do with being
Taking
prepared
care.
for being prepared for different situations and making sure that the other person's genuinely taken care of. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And you also bike a lot, Peter. How did you develop that hobby?
No.
As in
Bike,
motorbike.
as long as okay, there's a big difference. I didn't have a bicycle for about 15 years, but only since last year. This year I have a second-hand bicycle.
Right.
But well, the motorbike,
Yes,
when I was
motorbike.
15, so 8 years ago, I didn't have a moped, a small bike like 16-year-old guys would have. But I said, whenever I grow up from 15 to be 50, I want to have a blue Harley Davidson Road King bike and go on it to France for a holiday. Because in these days, in 1975, when I was age 15, the American Highway Police was riding on a blue Harley Davidson Road King. And for whatever reason, I liked that bike. So when I was 48, I went to the Harley Davidson dealer and how long is the delivery time of a blue Harley Davidson Road King? It was my only question. And then I started taking driver lessons for the bike, because not only for the car, for a bike is different. So when I was 50, I got this blue Harley Davidson Road King and I went to France on it.
Nice.
But when I got home from that trip, I put a bike in the garage and lock it. I've never been so tired in my whole life. Not just from driving, and also certainly not from drinking beer these days, but for one way or other, I think at that moment the flag and the horizon wasn't there anymore. There was a flag on the horizon where to go for 35 years, and suddenly I had the flag in my head, and what's going to be next? So then I generated a new flag at the horizon, and that is that my last wish only may be fulfilled the day before I die. I don't know what that last wish is, but this is my last wish. So as something to wish for, something to go for, and when there's nothing left to go for, then okay, it's good. It's a nice time to die.
Fascinating. Okay. Conscious of time, so we've now come to that part of the podcast where it's a rapid fire round where I present two options, and you have to choose the one which you prefer more between the two. Here we go. Swimming or biking? Or motorbiking?
I hate swimming, and as long as motorbiking, then is absolutely that.
The next question again is a bit of a bouncer. Cricket or rugby? Have you heard of
rugby?
Them?
No, cricket is absolutely boring. And rugby, especially with the New Zealand team, I don't watch it, but it's absolutely better than cricket.
Right. Beethoven or Metallica?
Metallica. And that's on the loud side. Blues rock and rock ballads is even more my favorite. Right.
Beach or mountains?
Beach is only good when you sit at a lounge bar sipping a beer. But mountains is better for bike riding and driving.
Fair enough. It depends on the day, I suppose. Meditation or sleep?
Sleep.
Book or podcast?
None of them. Basically, this, I never listened to a podcast. This is my first podcast I'm involved in. And reading, I only do business types of technical reading, but novels or literature. My last book I read was at the last class of high school. Was obliged to read some official stuff.
That was a long time ago then.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. To conclude then, if you could step into my shoes, what would you have asked me, or should I say, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
One of the things already we talked about is about the balance between family life.
Yes.
But I also think there is when you have skills or capacities of a gift or a talent or whatever you have, use it in to make the local society a bit better. It's only a bit what I do, but I play some role in local charity and local church community.
Yes.
And try to help people a bit there. So not only keep your talents and business skills for yourself, but share it at no cost with the local community.
Okay.
And I think this was a great example that my mom gave me. So never made a dime, although she could have been a very successful lawyer, but she spent her efforts on making the local community better. I think it's a moral obligation to do that. I mean, do it the right way. It's not an obligation, it's fun also.
Right. Very inspiring, that altruistic way of looking at life and people around you in general. Very refreshing, very inspiring, Pieter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time today, Pieter. And I really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope our audience does it too. Well, folks, that's all for today's episode then. Thank you for listening in, and please do subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and Spotify. Signing off then. Have a great day.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.